Recruiting insider for ESPN's college basketball coverage, Jeff Borzello. I hope you're doing well, sir. Welcome into the game in Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Jeff, I know this is a football town, probably always will be, but basketball has been able to grab a lot of momentum lately. But this latest news breaking this afternoon that you broke on your Twitter account, there's also an article on ESPN.com. A little bit of disappointment, first probably disappointment since Avery Johnson has arrived. Terrance Ferguson choosing not to continue his commitment to the University of Alabama, choosing to decommit.
Yeah, I mean, he was sort of the centerpiece of Avery Johnson's first full recruiting class at Alabama, and when they got him back in August, he chose Alabama over Kansas. And Kansas, for the longest time, was presumed to be the heavy favorite for him. So when Alabama was able to get him, a lot of people around the country in basketball were saying, okay, Avery Johnson's really going to get kids to Alabama. And, I guess since then, there's always been talk that, is he solid in his commitment? And then when the early signing period came and went in November without a signature, I think that talk really, started to ramp up a little bit. Coaches started reaching out to his mother and him to see what was going on. And he decided to do it now. His coach told me that he's been thinking about it for a few months, decided to do it now. Took a visit to Alabama this past weekend. I guess sort of get one last look at it before we started looking at other schools. So, we're going to see moving forward, what Terrance Ferguson decides to do.
When you look at Terrance Ferguson, let's talk about him as a player. What does he bring to the table? What type of caliber guy is this?
He's 6'7", wing player, can really shoot the ball at deep range on his shot, extremely athletic, really gets up and down the court, can finish at the rim. And then, when he played for USA Basketball in the summer, everyone was really impressed by his defensive versatility. Because he's so long and so tall, he can guard multiple positions. And so he really projects moving forward as, sort of this prototypical 3-and-D type of player, a guy that can make shots at one end and guard multiple positions at the other. And, wherever he ends up in college, I think he's going to make a big impact at both ends of the court.
When you look at Terrance Ferguson, do you know exactly what was it about Alabama that changed his mind? I mean, was it the visit? Was that a confirmation? Was it facilities? Was it Avery Johnson? Style of play? Any indication on exactly why he decommitted?
No, I mean, both his mother and his coach said that, they just want to be sure in the decision. And, that's sort of the company line when a lot of kids end up decommitting. They said they want to be sure and they want to make sure that they made the right decision. But, for Ferguson, he maintained throughout the past few months that he was, strongly committed to Alabama. He kept tweeting about Alabama and stuff like that. And, I guess he just decided now was the time to really take a step back and reassess his options and see where he wants to go next fall.
Jeff Borzello right now inside the game. He is ESPN college basketball insider as far as recruiting, ESPN.com, who's published an article right now. Terrance Ferguson, 5-star wing, decommits from Alabama this afternoon. When you look at Alabama, now I've got to ask you to be honest, okay, with this, because we're looking for ways to improve the basketball team. Obviously, Avery Johnson, the excitement, we're part of the tournament, and we're in March. I mean, we're part of the bubble, which is good. I mean, it's a positive thing here in Tuscaloosa. But let me ask you about facilities for a couple of minutes. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at Alabama's facilities, but a lot of people say that they're lacking. How big is that in the recruiting process when you're able to be on par with recruiting these high-profile guys and you've got top facilities? Right now, Alabama doesn't have that.
Yeah, I mean, facilities always seems to be a factor for kids. It's usually one of the top 3 or 4 aspects, whether a kid is looking to go there or when a coach is looking to move there and seeing, what kind of place he can go get kids at. It's just because, facilities really reflect a lot of things. They reflect they sometimes reflect the budget of the basketball program. They reflect the budget, of the recruiting aspect of the program. They reflect fan interest, things like that. They seem to be a sort of a microcosm of the fan interest and fan support in the program. And so, facilities, that's the first thing a kid sees when he goes on campus. He sees that, if he goes to Syracuse and they have a great practice facility and they have a huge arena, and then he goes somewhere else that, they have to share a practice facility with somebody or, it's an old arena. It's an easy, quick comparison that a kid can make between two schools.
When you look at football of how dominant that is here in Tuscaloosa, and it has been a unique dynasty, that overshadows basketball, whether it's fair or unfair. Does that hurt Alabama on the basketball side because football is so much of a dominant conversation here?
I think it can go both ways. I think that, in one sense, yeah, it gets overshadowed. And so even if you're an elite player at Alabama, you might not get the same profile as, obviously, a running back for Alabama or something like that. But on the flip side, there's a little bit less pressure. You're going to go into a situation, you're not going to have to be the big man on campus from day one. As a coach, you're not going to have to go and win 30, 35 games every season. You're not the main moneymaker for the school. So I think you can go both ways. If you're a coach at Alabama, you're going to pitch it and say, hey, obviously we have a ton of money in the athletic department, but you don't have to come in and be the focal point of the campus with everybody coming up to you. You can sort of come in as a freshman and sort of do your job and not have that sort of pressure.
What do you notice in Avery Johnson just from his first year as a college basketball coach? What do you see in him?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that he can coach. He has a lot of experience, and Alabama is like you said, they're on the bubble. They've had some really good wins this season. They're a lot better than I thought they'd be, than a lot of people thought they'd be. And on the recruiting trail, I think he's clearly making an impact. In addition to Ferguson, they got Braxton Key. He's another top 100 kid. Nick King, a transfer from Memphis. And I think that's what a lot of people expected. He's got great relationships in Texas and on the AAU circuit and in basketball circles. So if this recruiting that the improved recruiting that he's had, if that can translate to a few more wins, maybe next year they're not even going to be on the bubble. They could have 24, 25 wins and be a lot.
You hear this word quite often, and I don't know, maybe you can explain it, or maybe I just don't know enough about the basketball recruiting, but you hear from time to time that coaches have to play the AAU game in the recruiting trail. What does that mean?
It basically means you have to develop and maintain relationships with AAU guys. The shoe company affiliates, Nike AAU programs, Adidas, Under Armour. You have to maintain relationships because those guys, whether you like it or not, they have the kids' ears in a lot of cases. So, you're going to have to sort of not necessarily stay on their good side, but you have to maintain a relationship just so you can, have an open communication line with their coach and with the kid. And Avery Johnson's done that. AAU coaches like him, they know him, and so that really hasn't been an issue for him.
So when you look at Terrance Ferguson, as you're listening right now, or a lot of people are listening to you and sort of depending on you for information right now, we're talking with Jeff Borzello. He is ESPN College Basketball Recruiting Insider, ESPN.com, and you can connect with Jeff at his Twitter account. It is Jeff Borzello, straight up right there on Twitter, and follow him as far as the basketball news. But as a lot of people right now are looking for a little bit of a positive news in this, is Terrance no way Alabama gets back involved? Do you think Alabama can slip through the back door again and maybe gain his signature, or are they totally out of it at this point?
I don't think they're 100% out of it. It's just, based on, history, kids don't normally decommit and then recommit to the same place. I mean, James Blackman did it with Indiana a couple years back, but that normally doesn't happen. And I think, Terrance Ferguson, you can look at other schools, and, Alabama's going to basically have to re-recruit him if they want to get a commitment from him again. So it's going to be, not an uphill battle, but, I think they're basically starting at the same spot as, Kansas. Like I said, they were in the mix the first time. They're probably going to get back involved. So they're going to have to beat out a lot of schools to get a commitment from Ferguson again.
When is that late signing period date? When does it open up?
This is April 15th or so, somewhere around then.
Okay.